Hey everyone, Q4, a lot of owners of businesses and people who are running sales and marketing teams are not only trying to close out a great year, but are starting to think a little bit about the next fiscal. If you happen to have a fiscal that lands on the calendar, it's planning season. There's a bunch of traps that folks get caught up in, and the very nature of sales leaders is that we're overly optimistic, not pessimistic enough. So I wanted to walk through a session really fast, a quick video to help you maybe ask yourself certain questions that might make this a process that allows you to set up for some success. And I'm going to walk through a pretty typical scenario, right? So let's take a business. I'm just made up some numbers here. Coming off of this calendar, we're booking certain numbers. Called it 250K here. It could be 250 million, $250. It doesn't really matter. Let's say we're at a run rate right now in our business, booking 250K. That means we booked about $1 million. Now the question is, what is $1 million, right? What's a booking? The first challenge I think a lot of organizations face is like separating all the different types of revenue on a transaction, and I really want to focus on bookings here, not revenue. Very different. And really, when we're talking about bookings for B2B software companies, really what you want to do is separate what's recurring booking from one-time bookings. So examples of recurring, most businesses are really focused on a term called ARR, or annualized recurring revenue. Translate that into your MRR. And really the goal is to boost ARR as much as possible. But if you book a deal, a $100,000 ARR deal in December, you're recognizing probably none of it in the current year, right? It's really contracted ARR for the next year. So you're going to get 12 months of revenue in the new year. That whole revenue concept, separating it from booking, really important to note. But the other thing we need to really take into consideration is separating the value of the deal from ARR from the total contract value. And the total contract value could be made up of a bunch of things. It could be like a multi-year deal. So if you're booking, let's say 50K or ARR, it's a 5-year deal, you're really booking 250K. You can't go, celebrating a $250,000 deal, okay? You can if you want, but we really need to have a common definition as to what it is you're booking. So separate ARR from the multi-year contract number. In that case, it would have been 250K. The other number we want to separate out is any services or one-time fees associated with that booking. Now, a lot of B2B software companies are booking services on top of that. And so you really want to separate, when your sales rep, says, I got $1 million deal. Like, what does that mean? Like, where do you even start? Is it 50K ARR, $1 million of ARR? You really need to separate that out because you want to understand, really what you're setting up from a target standpoint. Now, $1 million deals are great, but if that's over 5 years and the cash comes in the tail end of it, it's not really $1 million deal. And, from a planning standpoint, you kind of need to separate all that out. So that common definition is key. Tends to be a massive failure of most CRM systems. I'll kind of explain how TekStack deals with it in a bit. But really get that definition. I would recommend just focusing on ARR. And for your finance team, you could put together a forecast on total contract value. But typically, services revenue rec is limited to your ability to progress through projects, which is really constrained by your team size anyways, and your ability to deliver projects. So I wouldn't even bother trying to forecast TCV. If you're a software company, really focus on ARR. Now, let's say your boss comes to you and says, yeah, good news, Mark, we're going to double next year. We're going to double our bookings. We just need you to 2X this bad boy. Pretty typical conversation, right? Almost always the new calendar year represents magically a bunch of growth, but don't fall into the trap, right? I'm going to walk you through what it'll take to 2X and how quickly you can actually get to a 2x, and what really what that means to a sales organization. So let's work on some really basic fundamental stuff, right? So you should always be planning your year bottom up, okay? I've fallen for the trap, I don't know how many times in my career, top down planning, never. Just bottom up, okay? And how do you bottom up? You got to figure out what you're booking. Now, when you're talking about wins, it's really important to separate your new customer or new logo from existing customer. Okay, so that's another dynamic that, frankly, most CRM systems are really horrible at. But you really want to analyze new versus existing and really focus on the new logo. The existing customer is a completely different growth strategy, okay? So of your 2x number, how much of that is on new logo versus back to base? Okay, so let's separate that out. When you're looking at new logo wins, look at what you booked last year. So in this little model here, I booked 41 transactions at 25K each to get us to our $1 million bucks in new bookings, ARR bookings. First question you need to figure out is what your win rate is. So when you're looking at win rate, there's a bunch of ways that this number will lie to you. Okay, a lot of it is inconsistency in really from rep to rep, when opportunities are created, when do you consider a loss. There's so much manipulation on spreadsheets around this number because win rate is one of those kind of numbers everyone wants to see a good number. I will argue with you that your win rate needs to be 50, probably is between 20 and 30. Hopefully it's not under 20. If you're under 20, you've got product market fit issues, pricing issues. It's probably not sales performance at that point. But hopefully you're in that 20 to 30 range. So let's say this organization is at 20. To hit 10 ops, they would have need to create 50 opportunities. Now, the challenge is they really would have needed to create those 50 opportunities to win 10 opportunities and 10 new logos in Q1, not in Q1. Naturally, it would have had to have been X number of days prior to Q1. That X is the length of your sales cycle, right? So it's another number you need to get your head around is how long is your average sales cycle? And we'll talk about that in a quick sec. The other point of attrition you need to think a little bit about is meetings booked. Okay, so I'm just going to use the term meetings booked. It's not a metric. We use a different metric. You might be using MQL, which is a dated metric. But there's some sort of attrition between some sort of like marketing qualified or like hand raising kind of like intent signal with a buyer and opportunity creation. Then opportunity creation to win. Those are two really important metrics, funnel conversion metrics, so you got to get your handle on, right? And so let's just for a second assume that for every 2 meetings booked or every 2 MQLs, one becomes an opportunity. And so in order to hit 40 deals in a year, you got to create 200 ops. Now, in order to double that number, if the prevailing logic holds with my win rate, I really need to double my opportunity creation. That's what the name of the game becomes. Now, is that really reasonable? So that's the conversation we need to kind of figure out. Going into Q4, you have a funnel for Q1 already. You may be adding in Q4 your Q1 funnel, but your funnel's gonna your Q1 funnel. So a lot of your Q4 deals will push, right? A bunch of them will push, a bunch of them you'll lose. You'll lose more than you win. So you'll lose 4 to every one. And then there's a big portion of your funnel that's going to push out. Right? Another metric you got to get a handle on is how much of your funnel do you push every quarter. And so with that, you're going to need to figure out, you kind of already know what Q1 is going to look like. You don't want to sign up on your new year at a 2x starting in Q1 unless your funnel can support that. So you got to do some quick math on that. But the next thing you got to need to figure out is how long your sales cycle is. How many quarters will it take to get to the run rate of book deals? So we wanted a 2x our number. That means we need to go from 10 deals to 20 deals. Now, if you say, well, I just need to hit 2 million at the end of the year, I'm just going to back end everything. Totally cool. Totally back end it. but you can't, the problem back ending, if the organization is aligning all these investments and stuff on your back-ended sales, you're putting a huge cash constraint on the organization. If you don't deliver in Q3, Q4, it's an absolute gong show, right? So you don't want to get into that. You're typically never going to see like one of these kind of hockey stick scenarios in your business, right? So really the question is, how quickly can you ramp up to the rate that you need to? It's probably going to take a quarter. And if you're going to do that, you need to make the investments in the business well in advance. The number of days that your sales cycle is long, right? So if your sales cycle is 90 days, congratulations, that's great. That means you could maybe add an opportunity in January and close it by March. But more likely it's a longer sales cycle, especially with the prevailing headwinds that we're going to have in the macroeconomic kind of climate. You can't count on that happening, right? So you need to start your activity ASAP. That means you need to start spending money now, but your 2022 budget is probably not going to allow that. But that's the absolute reality, is you need to start spending money now for your Q1 and Q2 funnels. And the rate at which you need to spend is going to be 2x. Right? Unless you have some efficiency in your business, you're going to need to spend twice as much in sales and marketing this year to get the result next year, at least 3 to 6 months in advance. And that's just a fact. Like, you don't just automatically double your sales efficiency. Your opportunities cost X number of dollars today, and that's not going to change. You're not going to hit, a thick vein. You're not going to hit, a gold mine of opportunity. It's basically, if you want to create in this number here 100, you want to get to this rate, you need to create 100 opportunities in Q4. An opportunity costs $4,000. You're spending $400,000 in sales and marketing, which would probably be double what you're doing today. All right, so sometimes the budget doesn't allow it. So make sure you don't get caught into that trap. Now, another approach to trying to get some efficiency, and this is the one I would actually really recommend, is really start focusing on your win rate. I'm just using an example of 20% win rate, which is pretty typical. Your 20% win rate, if you increase that to 30%, it has a gargantuan impact. It may only look like a 10% increase, but it's actually a 50% increase in win rate. It has a huge impact on your funnel attrition. And so if you could do that, have that same impact on your meetings booked or your MQLs or whatever you want to call it as well, you can actually get to the numbers without actually increasing your volume or your spend, just in sales efficiency. And how do you do that? Well, really analyze where you're losing deals. What stage are you losing deals? Are you losing deals at the very beginning through some sort of objection? Are you dropping the ball right at the beginning? Are you dropping the ball right at the end? There's a lot of analysis that you could get into, and you have to go deal by deal. Are you finding success with certain sellers and lack of success with others? We'll replicate the success with the current sellers today. Are you having success in certain industries? Replicate that. Forget all the other industries. Just focus on the ones that are working. It could be by source of lead. Are you having a higher win rate with outbound lead sources versus inbound lead sources? Well, if that's the case, just stop spending money on inbound, double down on outbound. Easy. By just having a marginal productivity boost on win rate and other funnel conversion just before your opportunity creation, you can actually achieve 2x very, very quickly. But the reality is most organizations don't have any of this data to make these decisions. Your CRM systems out of the box are usually garbage, right? They don't have basic concepts. I'll flip over here really quick to talk around some basic concepts that you should really be considering. I'm going to go to an opportunity record in our product TekStack. And we built TekStack just for B2B technology companies, right? Really long sales cycles. Lots can go wrong in these sales cycles. It's really about sales sales-led kind of organizations. So I'm not talking about product-led growth. I'm talking about sales-led growth. In these types of CRM systems, there's some stuff you really need to do. And probably the first one, I'll use this example. Ironically, we're selling some software to IBM. Here's a deal, and you can see it's a $275,000 deal for ARR, and you can see that the one-time fees are separated from ARR, and you can see that the total contract value, or what we call total amount on the transaction, is $1.5 million. So the first thing is you need to do is stop using these estimated revenue, one kind of roll-up money field, and God knows what it's supported by, like, where's the quote or what's the thing that ties back. What you really want to be able to do in your system is track all of the lines that make up that total amount. So here I have one product called Cyber Risk on a 5-year subscription. My price point times quantity gives me my ARR, but on 5 years it's ARR times 5. And I separate that from my services, which in this case is a $150,000 project to implement it. This is critical. Like, you really do need to separate all these money fields out. Otherwise, it's almost impossible to model how you're going to be successful. The other thing that you want to do is really track key velocity. So you want to know your average age on any given opportunity, because those roll up to give you an average, right? And we'll show you that in a sec. But you also want to see what your changes are from stage to stage, which this is huge, right? And this deal's not telling us a lot because I moved through it really fast, but deals that get stuck at the first stage, we call it discovery here, whatever your first stage is, those deals, if they stay there for 280 days, they suck. They're never going to close. But if they bust through that first stage and go to the next stage really quickly, that's got a high velocity on it, those deals typically win. Same thing, if you got a deal stuck at win and hasn't closed yet, like this one, it's been at win for 83 days. It's in contract for 83 days. That tells you a lot from a forecasting standpoint. So if you get a verbal and it takes you 90 days to contract a brand new customer, you should probably not be forecasting it this quarter. That kind of stuff. You really need to start getting these metrics. And most CRM systems completely drop the ball on both. Really important to start getting really good data on that kind of stuff. The other thing that you really are probably lacking, you really need to get a handle on, is analyzing your funnel. Not only from the current state of the funnel. Here I'm looking at my funnel analysis, which is telling me how big my current funnel is. I should just reset all this. How big is my current funnel? It's $8 million. I can figure out, by date, what's closing in what quarter, who's got the funnel in terms of the rep, where the leads are coming from, what products we're quoting, and all that kind of stuff. Really interesting, right? This is good for forecasting, this kind of stuff. But really what you need to be thinking about is funnel creation, right? So you really want to be focused on, okay, at what rate am I creating funnel? And so here we want to get really consistent results. So we want to see what rate I'm creating the funnel. What does that look like by source of opportunity? Where, what geographies am I creating the funnel in? And then you also want to start looking at your win analysis and really figuring out what your win rates are, by industry, by new customer versus existing customer. Don't let your existing customer win rates over-report your win rates for new logo. There are always higher win rates for existing customers. They're like 90% because you probably just drop in the work order the minute you get the verbal. Like it's probably completely misrepresenting what your win rates are. You really need to focus on your new customer opportunities from existing customer opportunities. Another complete failure of most CRM systems, to be frank, they don't separate the type of opportunity. Type as new versus existing versus renewal. That should be done automatically. It should be done based on the relationship you have with the account that you're creating the opportunity for in the system, right? So all that kind of stuff needs to be looked at. What is your win rate by opportunity or by industry? you're really analyzing. Here I've got wickedly large deals in certain industries, really, really small deals in other industries. Maybe we double down in certain industry. How does these large deals relate to my win rate? Do I have a really high win rate and a really large deal size in a certain industry? Well, guess what? You double down on it. But again, most organizations really lack the industry level analysis. The data is really poor, so that's a data management issue, or it's just not getting tracked. Really basic stuff. How does that look by product? Again, not getting tracked. This is the kind of stuff you kind of want to expect your CRM system to be collecting for you automatically, so you can get in a better position to start doing your forecasting. Start being in a better position to hit at your targets. So I'm going to leave you with this. Hopefully it helps, but it's really key to two morals of the story here. Getting the reporting you need in order to make data-driven decisions. Instinct is great, but probably going to be really challenging to nail it all the time. Get data-driven insights, and to make sure that data is accurate in the system that you're collecting, specifically in the money types and specifically opportunity types, which is new versus existing. If you get those pieces of information, you're going to be able to do a much better job in setting up your targets for the year. So I hope that helps. And we'll sign off and talk to you next time.